everyone, this is a short video to give you some guidance and help with the puff stitch. The puff stitch is a really beautiful stitch that I really enjoy making. It ends up with a beautifully textured piece of fabric that you create. It's the stitch that I use in my rainbow puff stitch baby blanket kit. So if you have purchased that kit, this video is the great place to come to give you some guidance if you're not sure, following the written instructions that come with your kit. So what I've done here is I've got a small sample piece. So this isn't obviously the full size of a blanket, just a small piece to illustrate how to do this stitch. What I've done is I've crocheted a chain. With this stitch, with puff stitch, you can basically use any multiple of 2 plus 1 will enable you to create an even puff stitch if you're making something of your own. With the blanket, it gives you the instructions of how many to crochet as a chain to start to give you the right size for the yarn that you've got included in the kit. What I've then done is I've done a row of double crochet, that's UK terms, or single crochet in US terms, to basically form a nice foundation to work from. You can do a puff stitch into a chain stitch, but having the double crochet here just gives us a little bit more of a border at the edge and something a bit more stable to work into. It's a good idea if you can to use one crochet hook size bigger than you're using to do your chain stitch, just because that makes your chain a little bit looser and it avoids it buckling as you create your project or the blanket if you're using the kit. So if you can, one size extra bigger is quite good, as a good tip. So having now done my base, I'm going to chain 2 to give me the right height to start my first row of puff stitch on the next row. What I'm going to actually do, so that I don't have a large gap, is I'm going to do a puff stitch straight into the first chain from the hook. So in order to start a puff stitch, you are going to be doing multiple loops into the same chain space. I'm starting with this first one, and as I have done my double crochet, you'll see a double crochet creates a V shape along the top. And I'm going to put my crochet hook into that space underneath those 2 arms of the V to start. So this is the space that I'm using underneath here. So to do my puff stitch, I'm going to yarn over and insert into that first chain space, yarn over and pull through. I've now got 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over again into that same space, yarn over and pull through. So I've still now got 5 loops on the hook. Yarn over into that same space again, pull through. I've now got 7 on the hook, and yarn over, insert into that same space again and pull through. I've now got 9 loops on my hook. So just double check: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 loops, and that's going to form my puff. So in order to now move on and complete that puff, I yarn over once more, but this time I pull that through all 9 loops on the hook, and then I finish it off by yarn over one more time and pull through that 1 loop, and that's completed my first puff stitch. I'm now going to do my next one, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip the next stitch, and I'm going to go into this next stitch here. So yarn over, skip this stitch and into this yarn space. Again, as it's my first row, I'm working under that double V of the stitch below into that space underneath. So I've yarned over, just check, yep, yarn over, insert, yarn over and pull through. So I've got 3 loops, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through. I've got 5 loops, yarn over, insert into the same space again, pull through. I've got 7, yarn over, insert the same space, yarn over and pull through. I've got my 9, sorry. Yarn over and pull through all 9 loops on the hook, so that I end up with still my 1 loop but my bundle of yarn here. Yarn over one more time to pull through that single loop, and I've created my second puff. Okay, so I've completed 1 row now across my width of the sample piece that I'm doing here, and I am going to finish off that very last. So I've done my last puff stitch, and I'm at the point where I've got my single loop now on the hook. So I'm going to yarn over and pull through just to complete that last puff. And then to start my next row, I'm going to do 2 chain stitches and turn my work. But as we've said before, it does create a V on the top, same as our first row where we were working into our double crochet from the very beginning. But what we're going to do from now on is actually not use those V's, and we're going to use the spaces between each of the puffs to complete the next puff stitch. So I'm going to now work into this space here between the 2 puffs. So yarn over, insert, yarn over, 3 on the hook, yarn over, insert, into the same space, pull through. I've now got 5 loops on the hook, yarn over into the same space again, yarn over and pull through. I've got 7, yarn over, insert and pull through. I've now got my 9 loops as we were doing before. And I'm going to yarn over one more time to pull my hook through all of those 9 loops on the hook. I'm left with the one on the end, yarn over one last time to form and close that first puff stitch. So now you can see I'm going to do exactly the same again. So I'm not really going to skip a stitch this time on these next row and all consequent rows, because I can really clearly see the space that I'm going to go into. Yarn over and into this next space between the puffs, yarn over and pull through. Yarn over, insert into the same space and pull through for 5. Yarn over into the same space, pull through for 7. Yarn over into the space, pull through for 9. And yarn over one last time, pull through all 9 loops, yarn over and pull through the single loop to close. So that is how you create a puff stitch. So just to recap, we started off with a foundation chain. We then did a row of double crochet in UK terms, single crochet in US terms to start us off here. We've then created 1 row of puff stitch using the V of our previous double crochet row to start off our stitches, and then every consequent row after that we are using the space between each puff to build up our project or our blanket. So on my blanket sample piece here, I've just got to the imaginary end of my blanket. So as I've said before, this is obviously just a small sample square, but essentially imagining that this is my completed puff blanket. And I'm just about to complete my last stitch. So I've completed the pull through of all the 9 loops on the hook. So I'm doing the last loop over, pulling through to complete that stitch. Now to do the rainbow border around the edge, I found that it's a really good thing to have a single double crochet all the way around the edge to kind of have a base to work from, and it makes it much easier to then follow on with the treble stitch afterwards in the different colours. So completing that stitch, I'm going to chain 1 and then I'm going to do a double crochet into, and if you see at the top here, the puff stitch has created almost the same like a double crochet does, this V at the top of stitches. So I'm just going to do a double crochet. So I've done that chain, so I'm going to go straight into that first V there, and I'm going to work, if you can see underneath it, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over and pull through both. That's a double crochet, single crochet in US terms. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, through both. And I'm working my way along, going into each of the stitches that the last puff stitch row has created, and that then is forming a nice border to finish off the blanket, and as I've said, then work through for the rainbow colours. So I'm just going to carry on and do that to the edge. Now because I'm at the edge, I actually want to start creating a corner. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to do 3 double crochets into the same space. I'm actually going to use the edge of that chain space here. So this is where my puff was, and I've got a chain at the end of the row. So like I have been doing with my puff stitches, I'm going to work into that space. There's 1, 2 and 3 in that same space. So that's going to start giving me enough to bend around the corner. Now I'm going to work down the side, which is the puff edge. Now this is obviously a little bit harder because there's not a clear line to work at through. But what I've been doing, and this has seemed to be working okay, is if we just slightly pull those edges, you can see that there are almost 2 spaces between each puff. So I'm going to do a double crochet into each of those. But also to cover this gap here where the actual puff stitch is, I'm going to use 2 strands at the end of that puff to also make a double crochet. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to do 1 more double crochet because that's almost where this first space that I'm talking about is. So I'm going to do 1 more into here to bring me around that corner. I'm then going to do another double crochet into this part where this space is being created here. So I'm going to do 1 into that. And then I'm going to use some strands from the edge of the of the puff stitch, sorry. So I'm going to just lift up what I think are the last 2 strands. It doesn't really matter if it's not, to be honest. I've not found that that causes a problem. And I'm going to use that to then create another double crochet there. Then I'm going to do 1 into this next space I can see. Then I'm going to do 1 into this space here. Then I'm going to use again the end of the puff stitch. Then I'm going to use that next space. And then use the next space here. So you can see that I'm just generating a double crochet edging, which is going to give me that V-stitch to work the rest of my trebles with the colours in much easier than it is if I were to try and go straight into it. And it's going to make a much neater finish too. So although it's not an exact science, that's what I've found seems to work. So essentially, if I just repeat what I did, I've done a double crochet using some strands at the end of the puff stitch. And then if I split the puff, slightly pull, you can see that there's 2 gaps here, and I've been using those 2 gaps. So it's almost like you're doing 3 double crochets down the side per puff. So they're the 2 in those spaces, and now I'm back to using some strands on the end of the puff stitch. So I'm going to carry on doing that till I get to the other end. Okay, I'm about to just pull up the last couple of strands of this puff at the end of this row here to do a double crochet, and then I'm going to do 3. I'm just going to use this space that I can see here to give me a corner. 1, 2, 3. And now I'm going to start bending myself back round to the other end. So you can see I've got a double crochet along the top where I finished my puff. I've gone around the corner, I've gone down the side, and now I'm back at the beginning where this is my foundation row here when I very first started the blanket. And I'm now going to do a double crochet into each of the spaces of that original foundation row. Again, even though this sort of does have a slightly larger edge already, it just makes it that little bit easier and the same, because obviously the foundation row hasn't created the same V-stitch quite like the double crochet has on these edges. So I'm going to just go back round and do a double crochet into this, and I'm using the foundation chain to do that. Okay, I'm just coming to the end of where I've now completed a row into my original foundation chain. This is obviously where I started right at the beginning, and where my slip knot was to attach to my hook. So I'm just going to use that space to do a double crochet, and then also do 2 more in there to start that as my corner. I'm just going to trap that in a little bit and get that starting knot out of the way. And now I'm back to being around the other side, which again is back to being the edges of my puff stitch. You can see that where I've done the double crochet on my original foundation chain, you might be concerned that that looks a little bit deeper than your finishing edge double crochet. So if you really felt worried about that, you could always do 2 rows of double crochet when you finish your puff stitch at that top end, so that it does make it deeper. But then bear in mind that you only want to do 1, 1 and 1 on this side. That's just one way you might want to think about evening it out. To be honest, the way that I've done it, so I've finished my puff stitch, done a row of double, done a row of double, done a row of double on top of a foundation and double, so this side is technically a little bit thicker. By the time you actually put the colours in and the border in, you don't really notice it too much, but certainly by doing this edging all the way around, you can see that I've now got a really even double stitch top to work into with my treble crochets. Okay, so the next stage now, once you've completed your blanket and you have a double crocheted all the way around the edge as a nice part to crochet into, you're ready to add your rainbow border. Now in the crochet kit, the Rainbow Edge Cosy Blanket kit, you'll have these 6 colours, these rainbow colours included, and you'll have some small skeins of these colours with 45 metres, which has been calculated as enough to work your way around the blanket and create this lovely border. You can copy the same colour obviously and do it in the same order. This is obviously in a sort of rainbowy theme, but you might want to experiment and use the same colours in a different order. That's entirely up to you. That's a bit of freedom you've got to decide that you can play around with. Okay, so to begin adding on our rainbow border, we're going to be using treble crochet. That's treble crochet in UK terms, double crochet in US terms. So to get started, what I tend to do is insert my hook first. Now because I've got that row of double crochet all the way around the outside, I can clearly see that V of 2 lines of yarn there that I'm going to insert underneath. If I just show you again, so I'm going underneath those. I take the end of my yarn, grab that and pull it through. Just make sure the tail's long enough for the other side, and then I yarn over and pull through. I just tighten that up a little bit so it's nice and tight. So that's my yarn attached, and then I'm going to do chain 2, and that's acting as the first treble into that space. I'm now going to treble all the way along. So to do the treble stitch, I yarn over first, insert into the next space, I'm going under the next V, yarn over and pull through. So I've got 3 loops on the hook. I yarn over and pull through the first 2, leaving 2 on the hook, yarn over and pull through both of those, and that's completed a treble stitch. Now I'm going to carry on all the way along. Yarn over, insert under the V, pull through 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through those 2. And I'm going to keep on doing that all the way along until I get to the corner. Now on this corner I can see that this middle stitch here is going to form my corner. Into that space I'm going to do 3 treble crochets in that space to keep that corner going all the way around, and I will do that carrying on round, treble crochet to the edge, 3 into this corner, treble crochet, 3 into this corner, triple crochet until I join back up, and then I will join into this original start, the 3rd chain up, so that then it will join into here and create my treble crochet that will look like that. And then I individually do each colour, cutting off and inserting in the same way that I did with the pink to get to attach on the next colour, and keep working all the way around. Once you're finished, you'll have lots of tails to chop off. As you can see, you'll be hard to find. This is, I think, around where mine are. So using your wool needle that comes in your kit, if you just thread the ends and thread them in amongst the stitches and pulling back through and snip off, and then you can hide those tails in amongst the border. This is a really good yarn. It's an acrylic DK, so it's very washable. So this hasn't been washed, this particular one, but it comes up lovely and soft and washes really well. So it's very practical as well, should it need to be washed. I really hope you enjoy making your blanket. It's very satisfying once you've got that finished product a beautiful product which is lovely to give to someone as a gift, or if you're making it for yourself or making it for a family member of your own. I really hope you enjoy the kit. I hope you found the video useful, and I look forward to seeing you on Suzie Jules Creates very soon. Bye!